Super Bomberman R marks the 33rd year of Bomberman, and I know when it was announced, I was so surprised. I always had this thought that Bomberman's declining popularity made Konami forget about him entirely. So I was genuinely happy to see Super Bomberman R get some love from fans. I know Konami has this reputation of being this big bad evil corporation, which is fair to the company itself, but that shouldn't degrade the quality of Super Bomberman R. No, the game itself should do that, which it kinda does. See, Super Bomberman R is such a mixed bag. It sports two very distinct modes, story mode and battle mode. The first thing we'll address is the story mode, which, as you might guess, is the single player content. Bomberman's gameplay style is confined to a set of rules. You place a bomb with A and watch it explode some destructible terrain around you. That's how you navigate around the maze-like levels. You're given an objective you need to solve with the help of explosions. Bombs can kill enemies, destroy blocks to reveal keys, and you can run around and try to hit switches. Along the way, you'll also be able to pick up various upgrades for the bombs, like being able to increase the fire range, having the ability to hit the bomb or pick it up, and that sort of thing. What I like about this upgrade system in particular, at least in regards to the story mode, is that you keep these upgrades as you progress in the world. Each world is split up into 10 different stages. Throughout the 10 different stages, every upgrade you pick up will affect the next run of the next stage you have. I like this sort of progression Bomberman was going for. I don't remember playing any Bomberman as a kid, so I don't know if this was something new Konami added, but regardless, it's a neat feature. Plus, the gameplay of putting down bombs to try to get to an endpoint or satisfy an objective is somewhat fun. If you're a fan of classic Bomberman gameplay and want nothing but that type of gameplay, then Super Bomberman R is definitely for you. However, for me, the story mode became sort of monotonous. Each world is basically the same as every other world, just with a different coat of paint. You're always doing the same objectives no matter what. Whether you have to kill a certain amount of enemies or just destroy enough blocks until you find every key in the level, there's not too much variety in the story. Granted, there are different set pieces and enemies that get introduced that sort of switch up the gameplay in a way. They make it a bit more challenging as the enemy AI sort of tracks you a little bit and is harder to hunt down and kill. But it wasn't enough variety to make the classic style Bomberman gameplay fun and entertaining for all of the worlds. I guess, like I said, it all comes down to personal preference. It would have been neat to see Konami go in an entirely new direction for Super Bomberman R. Maybe switch it up a little bit so there's some first-person segments, or try to divvy up the gameplay styles a bit more. As it is now, it just feels like I'm playing through the same level over and over again, just with some slightly different things put in every time. To be fair, you could address this type of criticism to any sort of game. Like, you could say New Super Mario Bros. U is the same thing over and over again, just with different level themes, enemies, and what have you. The difference is platformers like Mario and Sonic and Bubsy keep things fresh by having a constant forward momentum of gameplay. You keep going forward, you don't have to stop in your tracks and make sure you've done some checklist of things before you move on. That's the difference I see with Super Bomberman R and other sort of games. If you like the sort of gameplay where you have to go through a checklist and do everything the game wants you to do before moving on, then I can't blame you. It's all up to personal preference. However, I don't like it. It's not for me. That's coupled with the fact that this game is pretty easy and forgiving. You're given 6 tries to beat the entire world all the way through. That being said, if you die, you can pay money to continue where you left off. I never found myself lacking money, so I couldn't continue. I don't think this was a very smart design choice. What would have been better in my opinion is if Konami chose to implement something like, say, the Super Mario Bros. 3 world selection elements. That way you can travel from world to world and just pick one stage at a time. Not just be thrust into a gauntlet of 10 stages altogether. And at the end of a world, you get to play through a boss stage, which is kinda anticlimactic. Like I said, when you die in Super Bomberman R, you just get to keep playing with no consequences consequences. That means in the boss fight, you can just rush on them and drop as many bombs as possible. What could have been a challenging, fair experience where both Bomberman are only given one chance to defeat one another is kind of ruined. Not to mention, after you beat the Bomberman himself or herself, you have to fight the actual boss. This actual boss drifts away from what you've normally been playing. You fight them in open spaces, giving you freedom to run around and dodge all of their attacks and easily defeat them. It's just a matter of time before you beat them. If there is one sort of redeeming quality to this whole experience, I guess it is the story itself. The narrative's a little all over the place. The plot is delivered to you in cartoonish cutscenes, which all feature the 8 Bomberman just going on hijinks. Every Bomberman is essentially a stereotype. You've got a dopey guy, you've got a sleepy guy, you've got the cool guy, you've got the bossy guy, and you've got the girl and this other girl who hates violence. You could say this is lazy writing, and that's because it kind of is, though I did find some entertainment value out of how dumb it is. The characters don't act like they're having conversations with one another, and even when they do, they don't really make any sense. There's one time where the green Bomberman is trying to suck off the white Bomberman, and like at the end the white Bomberman hands him a bill.
And I think that I should eat a burger to build up some body strength.
I see. All right. I understand completely. You take this money right here and you eat all the... Wait, what?
And I guess that's the joke, but I don't understand what was going on at all. Some voice actors sound like they're having a great time and enjoying the role they have. I mean, at least they're having fun with the role, and I guess that's why I found some enjoyment out of it. If you're coming into Super Bomberman R expecting this extravagant, compelling story, then I don't know what to tell you. With that out of the way, let's move on to the battle mode. You basically do what you did in the story, only with CPUs or your friends. Local multiplayer is a blast. I mean, obviously, you can't play Bomberman for too long without it getting stale, but for the time you put into it, like in those first few minutes or hours or whatever, it is fun. Granted, anything with the right people is fun, but you know, fuck it, whatever. Online is a different story. Keep in mind, this judgment of Super Bomberman R's online only comes from the first day of the Switch's launch. Naturally, janky online for any console launch is expected. However, in its current state, the online for Super Bomberman R is bad. Input lag and the game freezing online makes moving around and dodging bombs frustrating. There's a league mode for Super Bomberman R that I kinda wanna get into. You know, I'm a competitive guy, I wanna be the top player in Super Bomberman R, but I can't. The online's just unbearable for me to want to play for more than an hour. I really hope that this is just a launch day problem and not something that will continue throughout the game's lifespan. And I hope even more that Super Bomberman R's online is not a reflection of the Switch's online. I'm going to guess it's not, and it's probably something on Konami's end and not with Nintendo. If that's the case, Konami, fix your shit. This is unacceptable. And if it's not the case, and if it's on Nintendo's end, I'll cut them some slack for now. On a different note, the presentation is alright. As I've said many times, graphical presentations don't bother me. I don't have some huge standard that must be met for something like Super Bomberman R. The only thing I will critique is that some of the visual effects are kind of lacking. There isn't a good death animation for most enemies, they just sort of die and fade away or drop into the ground. Explosions could look a lot better too, and animation can be improved. Cutscenes do look nice though, but those are just cutscenes. The big issue I have with the presentation is the music. I think a lot of the music in Super Bomberman R is very short. See, in every world, they play the same theme on loop. That sort of thing is so noticeable, it bothers me. I'll encounter a song I really like in a world, but then I'll have to listen to it over and over, which makes me like it even less. So overall, Super Bomberman R is kind of mediocre. Yeah, I said it, Super Bomberman R is not that great. The story mode is monotonous and somewhat boring. It doesn't do much in terms of variety to make the Bomberman style gameplay compelling. Just changing the theme and introducing some new minor changes to enemies is not a huge game changer. Furthering that, the online system is broken at this point. Playing with my friends right now is fun, but I imagine as time goes on, they probably won't want to play Bomberman again again and again. If you were to buy this game, I'd recommend you play it in short bursts rather than in long sessions. On top of all this, I don't think Super Bomberman R is worth 50 bucks. That's a little on the steep side given how little content there is in Super Bomberman R. If you have a Nintendo Switch and want this game, I'd honestly recommend you wait for a price drop or sale. This is a big moment, guys. The first price drop or sale of the Nintendo Switch.
Hooray.
As always, if you disagree or agree with me, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching and take care. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.